This is a brand new 2020 Harley Davidson Softail Low Rider S. I've borrowed it from my friends here at Tallahassee Harley Davidson, and today I'm going to review it. So last week I rode and reviewed a 2017 Dyan Low Rider S, which they only made for 2 model years, and after which they discontinued manufacturing anything on the Dyan platform. This left a lot of Dyan and especially Low Rider S fans kind of heartbroken because Harley Davidson, it seemed, had said goodbye to one of the best performing bikes that it had ever made. But for the 2020 model year, they brought back the Low Rider S model and put it on the Softail platform. So today, I'm going to give you guys a walk around and then I'm going to take it out for a test ride.
The Softail Low Rider S is the second iteration of Harley's Low Rider S model, following up the discontinued Dyan Low Rider S. Harley stuck to the Low Rider S DNA in combining a high-output motor, performance suspension and brakes, high-flow intake and exhaust, and an aggressive riding posture. The motor is a 114 cubic inch Milwaukee 8 V-twin, producing 119 foot-pound of torque at 3,000 RPM, an increase over the 110 cubic inch twin cam found in the Dyan. The Milwaukee 8 power plant gets that power to the rear wheel through Harley's 6-speed transmission and brings the bike to a stop with dual disc brakes in the front and a single disc brake in the back. The front forks sit on inverted suspension with a steeper 28-degree rake, and the monoshock hidden under the seat has an adjustable preload. The Low Rider maintained Harley's club-style aesthetic and added an LED headlight and improved handlebars. The step-up seat provides some support, keeping the rider firmly in the seat when under acceleration. The muted bronze wheels are a nod to the previous S model, with a 19-inch wheel in the front and a 16-inch wheel in the back. ABS is standard on a Softail Low Rider S. The seat height sits at 26.5 inches, maintaining the low rider stature the model is known for. The Softail version gets a slight bump up from the 4.7 gallon to a 5 gallon tank, extending the range on this bike over the previous model. That's enough looking, let's crank it up and head out.
So here we go, y'all. Softail Low Rider S. This is actually the first Softail I've ever ridden, and this is the first Milwaukee 8 I've ever ridden. If you can believe that. And what a bike to be my first Softail Milwaukee 8. If you haven't already watched my review of that 2017 Dyan Low Rider S, definitely check that out because this is as much of a review as it is sort of a comparison between those two separate bikes. And already there are some pretty big differences. So looking down, the dash and the top of the tank are pretty much the same. You can get this Softail Low Rider S in 2 different colors. This is sort of like a stonewash bluish gray, which is really, really beautiful. Really cool paint job. You've got the speedo and the tack on the dash instead of up on a riser clamp, which is pretty similar. You've got the same controls on this bike as you had on the Dyan. One difference is that this does not have cruise control, so that is something to point out. The riding position is really similar. I will say I feel just a little more spread out, but more forward. So my body feels a little more forward just in the stance. My knees don't feel quite as cramped. And I wasn't necessarily cramped on the Dyan, but it was just a slightly more aggressive foot position. So this is, like I said, a brand new bike. It's in the showroom at Tallahassee Harley Davidson, waiting for its forever home. It is going to make somebody very happy. Oh my Lord. This hasn't been broken in, so obviously I'm not going to do anything too crazy with it, but I will say that already I could tell the power delivery on this machine is just impressive. So impressive. It's got the 114 Milwaukee 8 in it, which is a very different motor than the 110B twin cam that was in the Dyan. Holy cow, this thing takes off. The clutch feels great and really, really easy clutch feel. The braking on this bike also feels really good and responsive. I mean, it's a brand new 2020 bike, still fresh from the factory. It should, but even then, just the, you know, if you've ridden enough bikes, there's nuance to the way sort of every aspect of its mechanics feel, and this bike just feels good. I actually think, quite honestly, I prefer this riding position to the Dyan Low Rider S. And that's not to say ergonomics obviously can't be adjusted, because they can. And if I were going to buy a Low Rider S, I'd have to do some, you know, some sizing of it just to make sure it fits my body comfortably. But this is just a slightly more comfortable and yet somewhat more aggressive as far as my body's lean goes riding position. So really interesting difference between two iterations of the Low Rider S. Now, I remember when they made the announcements that they were doing away with the Dyna platform, which meant they were also doing away with the Low Rider S, and I remember thinking, you know, the Low Rider S really helped sort of shift some expectations or some perceptions of what, you know, the people at Harley are designing. And truly, I was sort of wondering, like, okay, so what do they do next? The Low Rider S was sort of a benchmark bike. I think it really sort of solidified that Harley was paying attention to the Dyna Bros build culture that exists, especially on the West Coast, but that also they recognize that you know, we're Harley Davidson, we can build a performance-oriented bike and give it to you from the factory if we want. And so, you know, I was questioning, what are they going to do? What do you replace it with? How do you follow it up? And so this is the follow-up model. And I gotta say, I think they nailed it. The ergonomics, the look, the features, just the overall design, the responsiveness, all the mechanics, the power of the bike. Man, this is a worthwhile follow-up. This is a fun commuter bike. And just like what I said with the Dyan Low Rider S, this is the sort of bike where if you want to buy a bike where a lot of the footwork for getting you started into a performance-oriented build, where a lot of that work is already done for you, this is that bike. It's got the heavy air breather, it's got the exhaust, it's got the tune, it's got the larger motor displacement being a 114 as opposed to the Milwaukee 8107. And this is just a fun bike. Definitely a commuter, definitely a lane splitter. I don't know that I would want to go do 400 miles on this thing in a day without making some adjustments to the handlebars and to some other aspects of ergonomics. But, you know, that's really not what this bike was designed and made for. This bike was made for in-town joy rides and getting you from A to B in as little time as possible. Yeah, this thing is an absolute joy. I'd love to see one of these with a 117 Stage 4 kit in it, because I think it would be just an absolute monster of a bike. So there you guys go. That's the brand new 2020 Softail Low Rider S. Let me know what you guys think about this new iteration of the Low Rider S down in the comments. I'm the two-wheel teacher, and until next time, I'll see you on the road.